Shalom. All praises to Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai Bahashem Rakah Wadash. Double honors to the elder apostles, the bishops, and the elders of GMS who rule well. Peace and salutations, select. My name is Aina. The title of the video is He Tells the Truth About Slavery. Right? And I'm gonna play this video about this guy here. I've been watching him. Right? He's Isaiah 60, 1 and 2. He knows what's going on, but he doesn't know what's going on. He's stuck on that two horns like a lamb, the different parties, Republican Party, Democrat Party, right? He believes that Donald Trump is the problem. If they replace him, then things could get better, right? But ultimately, he tells the truth about slavery, which I found interesting. While Donald Trump is trying to cover it up and, get rid of the museums, and Mike Walsh is, I believe he said, he wants to cover it up too. So all these people talk about covering it up. No one is trying to apologize or anything like that. Not that we're asking for an apology or reparation or anything like that regarding slavery, because we sinned against our power, right? And that was the curses put on us to serve, basically. This is Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 48. It says, "Thou therefore shalt thou serve." Let's just start at 45. Deuteronomy 28 verse 45 says, "Moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee and shall pursue thee, and overtake thee, till thou be destroyed, because thou hearkenest not unto the voice of the Lord Yahweh Bashmal Shah, thy power, to keep his commandments and statutes which he commanded. And they shall be upon thee for a sign and for a wonder, and upon thy seed forever." So these curses are upon the Israelites. All right. It says, NLT, "These horrors will serve as a sign and a warning among you and your descendants forever." Right. And you can ask yourself, why so-called, black men and women, children, we just go through complete hell, and, we can't get ourselves up. And every time we try to set something up for ourselves, the nations come and they tear it down and destroy it. Right. Why they don't want us standing in groups and coming together, or even speaking good things. Right. That's why our music is pushing, killing each other, adultery, right, and all these different things. And that's because we're under the curses of the Lord Yahweh Bashmal Shah for not listening to. But Lamentations 4 and 21 goes into the fact that we have served our sentence, right, and now what's happening is the end of this kingdom, and right in the beginning of our kingdom, right. The scriptures say Esau the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning of it that followed, right. Esau, Edom is the so-called white man today, right. He is Edom mentioned in the scriptures. No matter how hard he tries to hide this fact, it has come out. All right. It says Deuteronomy chapter 20 verse 47 says, because thou servest not the Lord Yahweh Bashmal Shah, thy power with joyfulness and with gladness of heart for the abundance of all things. Therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, which the Lord Yahweh Bashmal Shah shall send against thee, in hunger and in thirst and in nakedness and in want of all things. And he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he have destroyed thee. Right, and we have discontinued, right, as a people of knowing who we are. Right, we discontinue from our heritage, so much so that certain individuals have Stockholm syndrome. They're trying to save their enemies now because they've been so attached to their enemies, for these years. Right, so we're completely destroyed. But the Most High Yahweh Bashmal shall reserve the remnant, right, and elect of his people to not bow the knee, right, to not serve and try to protect our enemies, but return back to him. Right, in these last days. It says, the Lord Yahweh Bashmal shall bring a nation against thee from far, from the end of the earth, as swift as an eagle flieth, a nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand, a nation of fierce countenance, which shall not regard the person of the old, nor show favor to the young. And he shall eat the fruit of thy cattle and the fruit of thy land until thou be destroyed, which also shall not leave thee either corn, wine, or oil, or the increase of thy kin, or flocks of thy sheep, until he have destroyed thee. And there's a very distinct difference between the Africans over there in Africa and the Hebrew Israelites, right, that scattered around the world. And that's a scientific proven fact, historically, all the, everything they did, they have proven that fact. And we're the only people around the world that doesn't have a seat, to speak for themselves. The white man speaks for us, and there's never nothing good. All right. Around the whole world, everyone has a land that they're in, right? A power or God that they worship, right? A religion and all these other things. The only people on earth who don't have that are the Israelites, right? And even some of the Israelites do have, certain lands, Venezuela, Jamaica and things like that. But even that is overrun and overtook by the white man. All right. It says, verse 52, and he shall besiege thee in all thy gates until thy high and until thy high and fenced walls come down. It says all thy gates. So any gate we try to put up, Black Wall Street, so on and so forth, has been brought down. It says, wherein thou trustest throughout all thy land, and he shall besiege thee in all thy gates throughout all thy land, which the Lord Yahweh Bashmiel shall have given thee. And thou shalt eat the fruit of thine own body, the flesh of thy sons and of thy daughters, which the Lord Yahweh Bashmiel shall thy power have given thee in the siege and in the straitness wherewith thine enemies shall distress thee. So that the man that is tender among you and very delicate, his eyes shall be evil toward his brother and toward the wife of his bosom and toward the remnant of his children, which he shall lead. So that he will not give to any of them the flesh of his children whom he shall eat, because he have nothing left him in the siege and in the straitness wherewith thine enemies shall distress thee in all thy gates. Yeah, so many times in time past, right, we have been besieged, going back to the sacking of the temple, right? You have the story of Susanna, right? These different stories wherein these events took place. Deuteronomy 28:56, it says, the tender and delicate woman among you, which will not venture to set the sole of her foot upon the ground for delicateness and tenderness, how, her eyes shall be evil toward the husband of her bosom and toward her son and toward her daughter. All right, so as you can see, the curses is definitely on us. Because that woman has, shifted far away from this type of delicateness. All right. It says, and toward her young one that cometh out from between her feet, and toward her children which she shall bear. For she shall eat them for want of all things secretly in the siege and straitness wherewith thine enemy shall distress thee in thy gates. If thou wilt not observe to do all the words of this law that are written in the book, that thou mayest fear this glorious and fearful name, the Lord thy power, his name is Yahweh, right? It says, then the Lord Yahweh Bashmiel shall make thy plagues wonderful, and the plagues of thy seed, even great plagues, and of long continuance, and sore sickness, and of long continuance. Moreover, he will bring upon thee all the diseases of Egypt, which thou wast afraid of, and they shall cleave unto thee. Also every sickness and every plague which is not written in the book of this law, then will the Lord Yahweh shall bring upon thee until thou be destroyed. You got your HIVs and so on and so forth. And ye shall be left few in number, whereas ye were as the stars of heaven for multitude, because thou wouldest not obey the voice of the Lord Yahweh shall thy power. And it shall come to pass that as the Lord Yahweh shall rejoice over you to do you good and to multiply you, so the Lord Yahweh shall will rejoice over you to destroy you and to bring you to naught, and ye shall be plucked from off the land whither thou goest to possess it. And the Lord Yahweh shall scatter thee among all people, right? So the Israelites will scatter among all people, and they look like many different people. So, it's not about color or anything like that. Israelites are all over planet Earth, mixed and mingled in all nations. All right. And the Lord Yahweh shall scatter thee among all people, right? So we're not together, right? We're not in our own land. We don't have, what we have, to ourselves or anything like that. We're scattered everywhere. We look different, right? And the Lord Yahweh shall scatter thee among all people, from one end of the earth even unto the other. And there thou shalt serve other gods, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone. Right? And that's why you have, us scattered among all around the world, not to ourselves, and we're worshiping different things, Buddha, sweet Jesus, and all these other different things, which, we was never, supposed to do, right? It says, and among these nations shalt thou find no ease, neither shall the sole of thy foot have rest. But the Lord Yahweh Bashmi Shai shall give thee there a trembling heart and failing of eyes and sorrow of mind. And thy life shall hang in doubt before thee, and thou shalt fear day and night, and shalt have none assurance of thy life. Right, and that's happening to us, right? The Israelites. It says, in the morning thou shalt say, would Yahweh it were even, and at even thou shalt say, would Yahweh it were morning, for the fear of thine heart, wherewith thou shalt fear, and for the sight of thine eyes, which thou shalt see. And as you can see, we went through hell, right? And we're basically coming up to the end of this thing because we see that Esau is about to fall, right? The scriptures say Esau is the end of the world, and we are at the end of the world. They're about to pew pew each other, go to World War III, and they're gonna, try to save themselves with the MOTB. Then Yahweh Shai comes and finish the job, and destroy them. Deuteronomy 28:60, it says, and the Lord Yahweh Bashmi Shai shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships bondage, right? By the way whereof I spake unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again, and there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you, right? So no one will save us from the destruction that we went through, which was a horrible destruction. And this guy says that. He is answering a question here where it says, are we the baddies? Right there, the second from the last.
Are we the baddies? Yes, we always have been. Guys, please don't forget the United States of America was founded on war crimes. It was founded on genocide, and it's not opinionated. Like, I am proud to be an American, but I can also recognize the fact that there were already Americans. We call them Native Americans as a way to kind of differentiate between us, but no, they're Americans. We slaughtered and genocided the Americans so that we could claim to be Americans. That is the truth. That is reality. It is something that we have to just accept. See, the only difference between the United States and Israel in terms of the genocides is that we committed ours in an era where there wasn't 24-hour live streaming. There wasn't a telephone for you to call and tell people what was going on. It was an era where you could commit a genocide and there really weren't consequences. Israel is doing, it's no different. It's just that they think they can do it in this era. You can't. You can't do it in this era. You can't with live streaming and never-ending news. Like, everybody's going to know. Everybody's going to know. Should do a history of all the bad we did. I don't think there's enough time to do that. We have done so much evil shit, dude. So much evil shit. Yeah. Stolen land? Yeah, of course. It also was a lot easier to manipulate folks. White folk thought black and indigenous people were different species. No, they didn't. That's not true at all. That sort of idea was created by wealthy slave owners and slave traders in order to talk people into it being okay. Never, they wrote extensively about the fact that they knew these were human beings. They were manipulating the stupidest people in the world into believing that they were, or coping. It's cope. It was cope. One of the ways that the slave traders and the slave owners coped with what the heinous shit that they were doing was by convincing themselves that these are not humans. They knew they were humans. They weren't stupid people. They knew those were human beings. That's cope. That's all cope. That's the first part of my comment, man. I'm not shitting on you. I'm just saying it's cope. They always knew they were humans. They always knew they were humans. They were just lying to themselves to explain away to their conscience why it was okay to enslave another human. Hi, Bean. Wow, you're so pretty. You're such a pretty boy. You want to say hi, Beanie? Do you want to say hi? I'm gonna hold you right. I'm gonna hold you right. Don't worry. Thank you for the $10.
Hi, everybody.
Somebody said you like Star Wars. Yeah. Yeah, I do. Yeah, I really do. I do. Just missing the blade. I have the blade, but you can't. It doesn't like retract in it, so I just took it out. Slaves were killed, cut up, and used as stuffing for furniture, bro. Sometimes slave ships would not have enough water for the trip, and they would throw slaves into the ocean to kill them. And then you have to understand these slavers had insurance on their cargo paid by their governments, and they would go back to their nation and they would expect compensation for losing their cargo. You understand? They would and they would get it. They would get it. It's actually one of the biggest reasons why the Brits stopped their slave trade. It was in like the early 1800s. There was a slaving company, a slave trader that threw like 300 slaves into the water and killed them and then seeked the insurance claim. And they didn't get it, but they ended up finding out. They were like, you had enough water for these slaves. You just threw them because you're, you know, like you're lazy. Like, you know how like people nowadays, it's insurance fraud, you know, like they're like, oh, like they crash their car or something. And then they like purposefully get into an accident to claim insurance. Like, the slavers were just throwing people off the ship to claim insurance money so they didn't have to take the whole trip. Fucking crazy. Fucking crazy. Yeah, and we only know about that because they were caught. Yeah, no. I don't think we will ever understand the true horrors of the transatlantic slave trade. You can go to one of the museums and see the way that we shackled these people up with like one person's head like this and the other guy head on the ground, legs up, right? That way we could pack everyone in like fucking sardines. Just it was so cruel that I don't know if we ever recorded how cruel it truly was. I'm sure we have like a relative understanding of it, but no matter what we think, it was probably way fucking worse than whatever we think it was. Way worse. Epstein Island still using slavery? Dude, United States of America mainland still uses slavery. You guys do know that slavery was never abolished, right? Like, not even kidding, like it's in the 13th Amendment. How many people here didn't know how many people here thought slavery was abolished? Don't be embarrassed. How many of you thought slavery was abolished? Because they taught us that when we were kids, right? In the United, how many of you thought that? Okay, so we abolished something called chattel slavery. Okay, chattel slavery is enslaving black people or Africans based on the fact that they are black, based on the fact that they are African, right? When Abraham Lincoln codified the 13th Amendment, they made it abundantly clear. The 13th Amendment abolished slavery and involuntary servitude in the United States, except as a punishment for a crime. My father used to say, everything before the word but means nothing, right? And except is just another word for but. So, again, abolished slavery and involuntary servitude in the United States, except as punishment for a crime. We have a ginormous slave population in the United States of America. They are in prison. This is the reason why the war on drugs exists. The reason why the CIA funneled so much cocaine into the United States of America was so that they could distribute the rock the crack cocaine into low-income areas, poverty-ridden areas, black and brown populations, right? Because it was cheap. And then they distributed the powder cocaine to the white areas, right? So if you got caught with the same amount, powder cocaine, crack cocaine, you got caught with the powder cocaine, you might get, 3 months in prison. Same exact amount of the crack, 5 years in prison, right? And the whole point was the impoverished community, the black and brown people, they could not afford the white cocaine, right? The powder cocaine. So the whites would get it, maybe they get caught, maybe a little slap on the wrist, right? But the black and brown people started to disproportionately be thrown in prison to be used as fucking slave labor, to the point where there are states like Alabama, right, where you might not know this, but 100% of all school materials, textbooks, pencils, desks, right, all created through slave labor in the prison system. And many of these prisoners are picking cotton on the same exact cotton field that their great-great-great-great-grandfather was picking as a slave. This is real. This is now. This is 2025. It's fucking insane. And a lot of this is because Ronald Reagan abolished the public prison system, or Ronald Reagan created the private prison system. So now there's companies, private funders who create their own prisons, and they're not in the business of rehabilitation. They're in the business of keeping their cells full. They're in the business of prison. So they lobby and they pass legislation that makes it easier to throw more and more people in prison to use them as slave labor.
Goodness. All right, let me and this is for you, so I'm not making any money off of this. For you. Isaiah 10. And one woe unto them that decree unrighteous decrees and that write grievousness, which they have prescribed, to turn aside the needy from judgment, and to take away the right from the poor of my people, that widows may be their prey, and that they may rob the fatherless. And that's what these devils do. They pass these different legislations, right, to do their wickedness. And they say, who seeth this? Isaiah 14:17 says, 15, starting at 15, Isaiah 14:15, it says, yet thou shalt be brought down to hell, to the sides of the pit. They that see thee shall narrowly look upon thee and consider thee, saying, is this the man that made the earth to tremble, and that did shake kingdoms, that made the world as a wilderness and destroyed the cities thereof, that opened not the house of his prisoners? Is Esau Edom, right? He's building prisons, right, to get that slave labor. All right, NOT says, is this the one who destroyed the world and made it into a wasteland? Is this the king who demolished the world's greatest cities and had no mercy on his prisoners? Right, it's Revelations. Babylon is fallen. Revelations 18:1, it says, and after these things I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was light of his glory. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the great is fallen, and is become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and a cage of every unclean and hateful bird. For all the nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her. And the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. And I heard another voice from heaven saying, come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sin, and that ye receive not of her plagues. And we do this by returning back to the Lord, right? Rehearsing the righteous acts, right? Trying our best to follow the law, statutes, and commandments. It says, for her sins have reached unto heaven, and Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua has remembered her iniquities. Reward her, even as she rewarded you, and double unto her, double according to her works, and the cup which she hath filled to her double. All right. So they're going to get it doubly worse. Wisdom Psalm chapter 5, verse 1. It says, then shall the righteous man stand in great boldness before the face of such as have afflicted him, and made no account of his labors. When they see it, they shall be troubled with terrible fear, and shall be amazed at the strangeness of his salvation, so far beyond all that they look for. Why is that? Because the Israelites, right, the men and women that they put in chains, in slavery, right, and talk behind the backs of and all that are going to be receive salvation, the strangers of the salvation. That's the chariots coming to pick up the elect of the Israelites and only the Israelites to save them from the destruction of America, right? And also pick up the elect wherever they are at in the world, around the world, because the world is going to be going through turmoil, wars, right? Different things are going to be happening, great earthquakes, all right? It says, and they repenting and groaning for anguish of spirit shall say within themselves, this was he whom we had sometimes in derision in a proverb reproach. We fools account his life madness and his end to be without honor. How is he numbered among the children of Yahweh, Bashmiel Shine, his lot is among the saints, right? That's a good point too. Regarding these earthquakes around the world is going to be taking place, right? Different buildings around the world shaking and falling apart, all right? So anyway, they're going to see our salvation, the elect. So, so I just had that. Let me see what else you got. I don't know if you said anything else.
It's insane. It's insane. It's insane. It's insane. Nixon's top advisor literally admits to it on a hot mic. Yeah, no, it's not a conspiracy theory. It's irrefutable fact. Yeah.
Hey there, welcome to another episode. Bomb.
Where's the audio?
Same deal, same report. Its function as a.
Can we get the audio of this? Let me try to find it. Hi, Bean. I don't know if we're gonna find it. Yeah, we're probably not gonna find it. Doesn't matter. We'll find it again. I'll find it in the future.
All right, so there you go. All right, so said that, Lord willing, we'll edify from the lesson, Shalom, to the whole elect, which consists of men, women, and children, Shalom.